Rosie Day, hello.
Hello.
Hello. We were just talking about your 5 cats. That seems like a lot of cats.
It does. An actress gave me a cat as a present,
Wow.
and as the cat was being handed over and the door was being closed, it was like, wait, she might be pregnant, and she was.
Oh.
And the cat gave birth during lockdown, and so nobody could come and see the kittens. And then obviously we spent all our time with these cats, and now they're just our pack. So we just have 5 cats.
So there was never a plan to give them away. You just got attached to them, I guess.
Yeah, like because we couldn't have people around to come and like see them and kind of put them up for adoption as you would. So no, they just they stayed, and now we have our family of cats that live with us.
And is this the first time you've owned cats? Is this this is the beginning of a journey, huh?
Grew up with dogs, so it's a real shock. And my sister is like deathly allergic to cats. So you can't come around my house anymore. It's not great.
What? How does she feel about that? That seems like you've lost a sister and gained 5 cats.
We found out on Christmas Day, and I can't say it went down particularly well. My mum had bought me all these like cat toys, but we hadn't actually told my sister that we'd got a cat. So it didn't go down great. I'm not gonna lie.
Okay, so how on earth does one break the news that that one of your closest relatives is no longer going to be able to attend your residence?
My mum did it. My mum was like, yeah, they've got a cat. Yeah, and it didn't, it really didn't go down well. But but she really likes them. She can come and like stand at the door and kind of see them for like 10 minutes, and then she can't because she can't breathe.
Wow. It's weird. Like, I was allergic to cats as a kid, and then it just went away. Maybe it'll go away.
It'll go away. Maybe if she has more exposure to them, it'll be like, it'll disappear.
Yeah, it'll desensitize her. I mean, like, I don't think either of us are medical professionals, so I should prefix this with the advice we're giving right now is not medical advice. But yeah, you spend enough time with cats and your allergy goes away.
Exactly.
So listen, you've got so much going on right now, which we're going to get into. But I thought we'd start at the beginning, which for you really is the beginning. Like 4 years old, am I right, that you began acting?
It's stupid, isn't it, when you say that? I have a 4-year-old in my life now, not my 4-year-old, my friend's 4-year-old, and I look at her and I'm like, why would you ever put her on the stage? She's so tiny. But yeah, no, I was 4.5. My first job was at the National Theatre. I don't know if I'm the youngest person to ever work there, but I probably was the youngest person that could like talk. I think I might have had some babies, but yeah, I was 4.5, and yeah, they're like my earliest memories are sort of running around the National, which is a bit weird.
So you do remember them? Because when I found that out, I was thinking back, going, "What do I have a memory from 4 years?" I think maybe Lego. I remember I had some Lego, but that's it.
I can remember this. It was a play called Summerfolk with Simon Russell Beale, and I can remember the play. I can remember going on stage. I can remember doing the job. I can remember eating. I only ate like rice and ketchup in the canteen. That's what I ate for dinner every day.
Sorry, you're going to have to pause there. What now? Rice and ketchup?
So I still to this day am a ketchup addict, like with everything. I just used to eat plain boiled rice that they had in the cafeteria and just sachets of ketchup. Yeah.
Okay. And I mean, you're a ketchup fan still. That's fine. A lot of people are ketchup fans. Would you still put ketchup on rice? Is this what?
I mean, I'm not joking. Not sweet things, but all like I am known to have like ketchup with my roast dinner. Like it's that level.
Okay. Okay. I mean, look, you know what, the expression that I'm pulling right now it makes it look like I find this weird. It
really does. It's cool.
Yeah. I mean, of course, so other people must have talked to you about this. I can't be the first person to go, sorry, what now?
No, everybody goes, that's disgusting. Because I like it. It's how I like my food.
Hey, and this interview it's not even an interview. I'm not here to judge. I'm accepting of all weird food habits, which this is pretty high. But okay, so you remember running around the National Theatre eating rice and ketchup. But do you remember actually thinking, hey, I quite like this acting lark?
I remember thinking, hey, I quite like missing this not having to go to school. Lark. That was, I think, because when I was little, it was my sister. So my big sister was one of those all singing, all dancing, annoying children. And she got cast in that play and also a TV series. And they needed a little sister for her. And I sort of ended up along for the ride. I think a casting director asked me, I'd come to like an audition and she said, oh, would you do some acting for us, Rosie? And my mum said that I went, no, acting's stupid. Why would I want to do that? Like, I just had no interest in it. And I think my mum explained that I got to miss school and I really wasn't like into school at all. So I was like, I'm in, count me in.
That's a young age to start. And yet, like, it didn't stop there. I mean, was there a point where you caught the bug and it stopped being about missing school and started being like, actually, this is something I quite like?
Yeah, I was about 10 when I did a TV show called Burner's Watch, which was like a kids show about a boy who could stop time. And that was when I was playing like a really mean girl in it. And that was when I was like, oh no, this is fun. Like, the idea of creating a character and getting to be someone else. Up until that point, you just kind of get cast as people's children, I guess. And so that was probably like the moment that I was like, oh, this is a thing. Acting is like a thing that you can kind of do. So that was probably that's when my mum says anyway, that I was like, oh no, I want to be an actor. This is fun.
So that's interesting, because I think I remember hearing that you really like playing unlikable characters, and so the first character that you played when you actually fell in love with acting was itself an unlikable character.
Oh yeah, she was very, very horrible. So yeah, I think unlikable characters are far more interesting.
By the way, I've just noticed a wonderful selection of spirits behind you. I hadn't clocked that at the moment. That's some collection you've got going on there.
I don't drink at all. I hate the taste of alcohol. So these all belong to my partner, who I promise is not an alcoholic. This album is mine. That's my like thing. But alcohol is not.
Okay. That's possibly why you were so insanely productive, because you don't drink.
I don't drink, no.
So one of the things that you did as a kid, and I don't know whether you remember this, I'm sure you must do if you remember being at the National at 4 years old, but you were in one of my favorite sketch shows of all time, which is I Always Chew Simon Pegg's Ear Off, about how good this show was and how much I miss it. I think it had 2 seasons, which is Big Train. Big Train,
literally, yeah. I remember that so clearly because it was so much fun, because I got to do, it was a spoof on the Raging Bull thing. So I was playing De Niro's character with the gloves and was like getting to be on a boxing ring and kind of punch lots of big muscly guys. And I was teeny, I think I was about 8 when I did like that one, and I was so little. And and I was working with Rebecca Front, who played my mum, who I then worked with again about 3 years ago and kind of got to know really well as an adult, which was like a really weird thing, because I was like, I worked with you as a kid and now we're still here. But yes, no, it was really, really funny, and really, I remember really enjoying that one, and that still gets brought up. People often talk about that one to me.
I can imagine. It was one of those, it's a sketch show like you don't see many of, because it was just, like you say, like the description of yours. I think people can see it online. I mean, I rewatched it because I was like, hang on a second, Big Train. And I rewatched it, and yeah, it's out there, but it was, just your description. It's such a surreal show. It was marvelous.
Yeah. I remember really, really, really enjoying it. And they gave me a lot of cake as well. I remember that. Keep me going, because I was like boxing a lot. So they gave me lots of cake. So I was like, yeah, this is a good one.
Ketchup or just cake?
No ketchup on cake, no. But lots of cake, generally. Sugar. Ketchup. This explains it.
So being on stage, like from 4 onwards, did it really normalize the experience of getting on stage? Like, do you now, obviously you've done a play recently, which we'll talk about, but do you get nervous, or is it because you've been doing it for your entire life? Do you just sort of go, yeah, I know this, I got this?
I found theatre, so I did a lot of theatre as a kid, probably till I was about like 11, and then I didn't do any until I was about 21, and kind of through various, I don't know how to describe it, slightly uppity people was told because I didn't go to drama school that I couldn't do theatre as an adult. And that was very much something that was like forced into me, into my brain, thinking I wasn't good enough essentially to be on stage as an adult because I hadn't had that training. And it was only when I started working with a director called Hannah Price who was like, you can totally do theatre, what are you talking about, like that's nonsense, that I kind of recently have got back into it. And yeah, it absolutely terrifies me, but in the best way. It's like the best adrenaline rush that you can kind of ever have. But I genuinely had about a 10-year break from doing it, just because that's the way what the industry was sort of telling me. Yeah, but now it's like my favorite thing in the world.
That's crazy. So there really is. It's weird that you say that. My guest last week on the show was saying a similar thing, that there is actually a snobbery in the industry, not only about whether you went to drama school, but then on top of that, which drama school you went to.
And you better not be a child actor growing up, because that's you know, that has its own sort of stigma around it, really. And I think if you haven't then gone and trained, people kind of, people, I don't know what they think, because you know, when you've grown up on a set, you kind of just learn. I learned how to act from watching other actors. That was sort of kind of how I did it, and I think that's quite a unique but quite a cool way to kind of do it. And then, you know, it's all about, I think it's all about the directors that you work with. If you work with really kind of creative, brilliant, open directors, then anything sort of possible. It's just, I think, the very traditional people are like, you have to go to RADA to be a national now, like, yeah.
So I mean, that was like your late teens, early 20s when that was happening. Do you think that's changed now? The industry has changed, or does that kind of, that snobbery about drama schools still exist?
I think we're definitely sort of paving the way for change in the industry as a whole, and being far more kind of inclusive and sort of, you know, giving lots of people a lot more opportunities. But I definitely think that there is still a snobbery, and it's, theatre is a very protected club. Like the, you know, the people that get seen for the auditions at kind of the Donmar and the National and the, you know, and that's sort of the same sort of people that get brought in, and you kind of have to work your way into that club still, which is really difficult to break into, I think. So yeah, no, I do think we still kind of have that opinion and that snobbery around it.
Yeah, I mean, it's weird because there was that whole conversation recently about how it is, you know, it's kind of an exclusive club. Like, to be able to go to drama school in the first place is a privilege, like, that not everyone can have, and so it results in, I guess, a certain kind of person who ends up being an actor. You know, depending on your background and whether you can, is the word afford, but be in a position, let's say, where you can experience that.
Exactly, yeah, and if not, it's whether you can kind of fundraise. You know, you see kids that are having to, you know, fundraise online just to try and get to drama school, and I think that's really, really sad. And I know drama schools have kind of been reworked over the past sort of year or so and are going through a big overhaul, which is great. But yeah, it's I think it still is a sort of club that a lot of people are kind of locked out of still. Hopefully that'll change.
Yeah, I think, you know, I think there is an awareness now. I think the fact that we're talking about it, I think that it's out there that there needs to be some sort of sea change in how people who perhaps don't have the assets can still experience and follow a career they want to follow.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, absolutely.
So what do you, apart from obviously a character being fundamentally unlikable, which is brilliant, what do you look for when a script sort of lands in your lap, and what are the things about it that make you go, yep, that is for me?
It's usually, I mean, I think most episodes, but it's like the story, whether the story's been told before, and the writing. I think all of great filmmaking and kind of TV is in the text. And usually I get a script and I go, okay, who's going to get cast in this? That's not me. That's generally the first thing I do, which is probably a really bad habit. I think of all the kind of other actors before me. They're like, oh, they'll probably get that. They'd be really good for that role. I should probably be a casting director instead. And then, I mean, it's all down to, for me, I think as a woman, it's like, how are the female characters written? Like, you know, is it kind of our story or like a female story? And whether, you know, really if it's just a kind of story that's worth telling, really. And for me, yeah, it's all in the writing and kind of whether there's something that I think that's interesting about it. But also it's whether you're like, do you think it's reasonable that you're going to get this job? And then you can kind of get excited about it, you know, if you think it's sort of plausible. Because, you know, sometimes you get sent scripts that you're like, you know, that Spielberg are directing, and you're like, oh, I wish, like, that's kind of how it That's kind of how my brain works. Yeah.
So, I mean, you talk about the fact that you know how the female character is written. Is this a story that is, you know, about the female character, or, you know, the old oh my gosh, the famous test, just when female characters only talk about the male character in it. It's completely slipped my mind. So do you think that's changing at the moment? So we're here in 2021. Have you noticed that the roles that and the scripts that you are being sent have improved in the quality of the way the female characters are written?
I would say yes, for sure, but I would also say they are predominantly written by men. That was a really good, I think The Guardian did an exploration to that, and it's still like 12% of scripts are written by women, and they're original stories, they're not adaptations. So no, they're usually written by men still. But yeah, I would definitely say that there's a conscious effort to try and tell stories, but it's not often women who get the chance to tell those stories, which is kind of with me, because I played a lot of teenagers growing up, and so often it was written by like a 50-year-old white man, and the teenage girl would be so badly written that you'd just be like, because they have no experience of it. And it's not to say you can't write something that you don't have experience of, because of course you can, but it's always the very stereotypical kind of trope that they often go down.
So you'd say, like, so there is a marked difference. I'd imagine there would be, but not reading scripts. I couldn't say for sure, but I imagine there is a marked difference between a female character written by a female writer compared to one written by a man.
Yeah, absolutely. There's an honesty to it that I think that that you just get when it is your own sort of lived experience, when you have been a young woman, rather than kind of somebody imagining it. In a way. And you know, the amount of stuff, you know, I've only just stopped playing teenagers, but you know, every teenage girl character description was like ridiculously beautiful. You know, that was always in the character description, and you're like, why can't you just have a teenage girl that just looks like a, you know, a girl, and who's just, you know, that hasn't got to be emotionally distressed or incredibly sarcastic or troubled, or you know, hating their parents. That's the other one that used to drive me up the wall. I really liked my parents growing up, so
that is interesting. I feel, I mean, you look through history, and it seems that now we are in a period of change, because you look at something like, I was reading the script for Terminator recently, and now James Cameron is obviously, you know, he turned Ellen Ripley into an action hero in Aliens. He gave us Sarah Connor. But when he first wrote Terminator, so he described Sarah Connor as the girl at the party who wouldn't turn heads. This classic vulnerable, but you know, has got an inner strength we just can't see at the moment.
Yeah, character description. There should be a podcast in itself where someone just reads character descriptions of women over history. I think that's worth it.
So over your career, this is for me, because I really think every actor needs on their CV at least one good death scene, and you have collected a fair few over your carear.
I have. That's the fun of doing horror movies. You often get to die.
I want to go through some of them, so because they're great, and they are really. When I was sort of writing them down in prose form, I was like, that just reads like a good death scene. Yeah. So, Good Omens, for example. So you did Good Omens. This is only recently.
We love.
First, go on. Sorry.
We love Neil Gaiman.
Right.
I only got that job because I met him at an award show and sort of befriended him. And because I'm one of his like biggest fans, and then that kind of came about that way, and I'd worked with the director before and essentially just harassed them to let me in it, and it worked.
Yeah, it did. How was he? Weirdly, I did a Q&A for American Gods, the show, but unfortunately he couldn't be there, and I was like, you know, when you're sort of trying to put a brave face on things, but when I got there and they were like, yeah, sorry, Neil's not going to be here, I'm like, oh, come on, man, part of the reason I'm here. But how was he when you met him?
He's the kindest man. He's just so lovely. He was so lovely to me. And, you know, we exchange tweets sometimes on Twitter, and he's a really good egg. Yeah. And well, but you know.
Yeah, he is. So your death in Good Omens, was he there that day when you were shooting? Because I know he was the showrunner on it.
No, he wasn't. No.
Well, either way, I just wondered whether he was going. And now you get engulfed by a billion maggots who eat your flesh, who then turn into the Antichrist.
Yeah, cash. Just standard day at the office, literally standard day at the office as she got eaten to death by maggots. There was only one maggot on set that day, but it was in my headphone. I had like a little, the Britney like mic, and it wouldn't do what it was supposed to do. So I just had to sit there probably for about 15 minutes while they tried to get the shot of this maggot wiggling out of my mouthpiece, just trying not to gag, because they really smell.
So, yeah, I mean, you often hear about animals on set not quite, taking the direction that they're supposed to, and how the trainer's there and they're trying. It's weird. A maggot couldn't take direction.
That's not. I guess, yeah, training a maggot is maybe a bit too difficult.
So that's one death scene, brilliant death scene for poor Lisa in the call center. Next, so this is a director. I guess, would you call yourself one of his players? Because you've made 3 movies with Paul Hyatt.
So Paul gave me my first ever film, and I guess we kind of have that sort of like connection, because he kind of gave me a movie that kind of really helped my career, I guess. And so yes, we've made a fair few horror films together. Are you going to say Howl, the werewolf film?
Yep.
Where I get flung from a train and my neck gets eaten by a werewolf.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
My mom was thrilled when she watched that one. This special, because Paul Hyatt comes from special effects, so he is incredibly talented. And so that piece, I genuinely did it like my neck had been ripped out, and my stomach. They did my stomach as well. It was it was very gory, and I did have to hang upside down in a tree.
Well, it's a movie that looks beyond its budget for that exact reason, that the special effects on it are fantastic. The poor woman's leg, when they're pulling back the bandage and she's been infected on the train, it's like, it's really, really good prosthetics.
It's one of those films where, I don't know, I remember we watched it, I think it was at the premiere, and lots of people found it funny, and I don't think the film was ever intended to be funny, but has now sort of taken on a life of its own, where it's like this horror comedy, but I'm pretty sure that's not what anybody ever intended it for.
Yeah, werewolves. I watched it because I love a werewolf movie, and it's one of those deaths, your death in it, that's really dark, because you think that your character is dead. You sort of get dragged out of a train window, disappear onto the roof, and you hear screams. But it's the fact that we come back to you later, still alive, being eaten alive.
It's ridiculous, isn't it? What we get paid to do as actors. It really is.
And then it's another Paul Hyatt joint that is another fantastic death, which I think the film's changed names now, because it was called The Convent, and then when I was watching it on Amazon, it's called Heretics.
Yes, no, so it was called Heretics originally, and then I think they changed it to The Convent so people knew what it was about. I can't say I've ever seen that one. I'm not sure if I'm allowed to say, but I had a really bad time filming that film. It was not a pleasant experience. So I think I've sort of I was like, I'm not gonna watch it back. I actually can't remember how I die. How do I die in that film?
I can tell you how you die. Why wasn't it a pleasant experience?
It was just one of those things where it was sort of it was incredibly chaotic, and there were some not very nice people on the job, and we were down in Wales and it rained the whole time we were there at Christmas, so it was like minus, I don't know, gosh, like -5 or something, and I just remember being really, really, really not very happy on it, because I think just because of that, it was not. I like to work with really kind, happy people, and I think sometimes as a young woman, when you're on a set and you can sometimes be made to feel quite uncomfortable, it can really sort of affect how you view a job, and that is genuinely probably my least favorite job actually that I've done. So I've not watched it, so I can't remember how I die.
Wow. Well, I'm really pleased I brought it up. That's
Oh.
No, I mean,
how do I die?
You die because you become possessed by a demon who causes you to stab yourself in the heart, and then when you are repossessed by this demon, you have your head chopped off and placed on a spike.
Well, I know, I remember. Yes, I remember filming the spike. I remember filming having my head on a spike. Yes, but I don't remember killing myself. And how funny! I must have blocked a lot of it out. Clearly, But wow, that's gory.
It looks. I mean, it's weird that you say I didn't have a good time on it. It looks like as a film. It looks like a tough shoot because it is relentlessly bleak. Like the setting, being trapped in this monastery, and it does rain in most scenes.
Shots because it was raining literally the whole time.
So those are my favorite 3 deaths of yours. Thank you for going through them with me. That was a pleasure. But you mentioned that your very first movie was with Paul Hyatt, which you got a great number of plaudits for your performance in, which was The Seasoning House.
Yeah, it was that again. I mean, it was a very dark film, but it was based on a true story set in the Balkan War about young girls being prostituted by the military and sort of used as pawns. And I was playing this kind of this deaf character who kind of helped in this house essentially. And yeah, it was an amazing experience. It was quite a tough shoot. I think we shot it in like a month and a half, and I was doing my A-levels at the same time. But it was really, really cool. Like, it was a really cool experience kind of to have, and I kind of got to learn sign language and you know, I think about that quite a lot now, because I don't think if that film was made now, they would cast a deaf actress to play that character, and rightly so. You know, that we shot that over 10 years ago now, so I kind of often think about that, how I ended up doing that role.
And in terms of it being your feature debut, were you sitting waiting for the right role to come in, or was it just a coincidence that role came in at the right time?
It was just one of those things where I was at school, and I think they'd seen like 150 girls or something, and I was one of the last girls to go in for it. And my agent at the time actually hadn't read the script for it, so he didn't know how dark it was. And it wasn't until he came to the premiere that he was like, wow, yeah, that maybe should have read that script for you. I was under 18, so I really didn't think they were going to cast me, because I thought, you know, for like legal reasons, they'd have to cast like, you know, an 18-year-old that looked young, you know, as they often do. But no, they did pick me, and it was yeah, I mean, it was very, very fun. I did a lot of my own stunts. I kept coming home with like more bruises and scratches. They had a stunt double, but I was like, let me do it. So yeah, no, it was really, really, I had a great time shooting it.
Well, you talk about your age, and you know, it's a bleak film which deals with some very dark themes, and you're 16 at the time.
Yeah, and then you go back to school and you're like sat in, you know, English, which is like, I remember my first day back, and I was like, this is very different to what I've just been doing for the past month and a half. Yeah, it's, you know, that it was definitely, I think, you know, there's a lot of sexual violence in it, and I think, looking back on it now, where I am now in my life, you kind of go, that was probably a lot to process at 16 when you're kind of watching actors, you know, portray rape or something like that. That was probably quite, probably did have an effect on me, I think, moving forward in my life, because that's something that you don't often see as a kind of 16-year-old.
But you did get to work with Sean Pertwee, who is a freaking legend.
He is a legend. He is the loveliest guy, and he was so kind to me. He was so lovely, was so supportive.
Yeah, he's in one of my favorite movies of all time. I say my favorite movies of all time. I have a lot of love for this movie. I feel that if I say it's one of my favorite movies of all time, people go, really? But Event Horizon, it's a sci-fi horror. Anyway, I bumped into Sean in a bar once, and I literally, when you're like, I walked away, and the following day I went, I think I was that guy, because I just plonked myself next to him and chewed his ear off about Event Horizon and everything that he knew about it.
I loved that though. I love to always be a fan. I think I'm such a fangirl of so many things and so many people. I think it's a positive quality.
Well, we've talked about horror, and I mean, I don't know whether the term fangirl is relevant to this, but you did get to work with a great comic actress in the form of Sarah Jessica Parker on All Roads Lead to Rome. So were you a fan of Sex and the City before working with her?
So that was a job that I went for the audition. I was like, well, I'm never going to get it. Like, I'm never going to get that job. And my mum turned around in the kitchen and went to me, well, don't go to the audition then. But I did go to the audition, and I did obviously get the job. And so no, hadn't seen Sex and the City, but obviously knew what a legend she was. And I remember meeting her for the first time, and like I was shaking just because I was like, oh my God. And then literally had the best 3 months of my life ever doing that job, because we were in Rome together, and it was just magical. She's a really incredible woman who is incredibly kind and incredibly just kind of wonderful, and that probably, I think, will always be one of my favorite jobs for the rest of my life.
So at the audition, I mean, obviously it's probably not a great idea to walk into an audition thinking I'm not going to get it, or maybe it's not. I mean, I don't know. It could be that if you walk in thinking
my life going, I'm not going to get this, but oh well.
And how did you sort of walk out thinking, actually, you know what? I think I did pretty good in there.
I knew I could do the character really well. Like, I was like, I can play her. It's just, I didn't think I looked like Sarah Jessica Parker. And also, like, it was an American movie, and I just was like, I don't think that's ever going to happen. And I actually got told by my agent's assistant that I hadn't got it. About a week later, I had a phone call. I was nannying some little kids, and this agent, Humphrey, phoned and was like, you've not got the job. And I was like, oh, okay, yeah, sure. Then about 3 days later, on a Saturday, my agent phoned and was like, you booked the job. And I was like, oh, he told me I hadn't got it. And my agent was like, no, we hadn't heard. We were just waiting. So I'd been told I hadn't got it. And then my agent phoned on a Saturday and was like, you've got the job. And I was drying my hair. And I remember literally putting the phone down and just being like, shell shocked by it.
Of course, you remember exactly where you are. That must be one of those moments where you're like, this is a big one. This is a game changer.
I think as an actor, they always say like the best day of the job is the day you get the job. I think, but you remember, I have those moments where I can remember where I was at the time, and their memories that are so like kind of like etched in your mind. I had one day, and it's only happened once, where I booked 2 jobs on the same day, and that I think probably has to count as one of the best days of my life, because it's like, you book 2 jobs on the same day, which never happens ever. So
wow.
Yeah.
Big jobs as well.
Yeah, one of them was Outlander. So that it was a good day. It was a good day.
Because we had Sam on the show not that long ago. So you worked with him on a film before Outlander.
We worked on a film together. He'd just booked Outlander, and then he was going away to film after we shot. And we were in the Lofoten Islands, which is the very top of the Arctic Circle, where it's light 24 hours a day, shooting this kind of very quirky Henrik Ibsen sort of film. And so we got to know each other really well, because we spent all of our time kind of together, the kind of key actors. And it was on that he had just finished reading the second book, and he went to me, if there is a second series, there's a character that you will play so well, if that happens. And then cut to, I think it was about 18 months later, I was playing that character, and he swears he had nothing to do with that like decision, but I mean, I don't know, but he is one of the kindest men. I love him. He's just wonderful,
isn't he? And whether he did or didn't, it's nice that he says he didn't.
Yeah, I know, isn't it? Like he's like, oh no, I'll let you have it off your own merit. But no, like but that's, I think, Sam all over. I think he's so generous. He's so lovely, and that show is such a iconic thing now. Like, it was, because I did the second series where it was kind of, it had a huge fan base, but kind of hadn't quite expanded into what it is now, which is something kind of on a global scale.
Yeah, have you had experiences of the fans? Because when we did the interview with Sam, it just exploded, because like the fan base for that show is incredible.
I did a couple of like Comic-Con things, which was amazing to people. I've never done anything like that, where you get to meet people, and they are so passionate, and they know everything, and they knew way more than I did about, I'd read the book, but I didn't know the level that they knew, and they're so it was the first time I think I'd ever been in anything that had a fan base, and so getting to experience that, where they like make you presents and like give you things, and it's a lovely thing to be a part of.
It must be scary though, like what? Because obviously, like, you're in it, so I guess to them you have a duty to know everything, and so when they go, but obviously this, and do you like this happens in this book, and you're like, Yeah, I know that. Or do you come clean and go, I actually don't know anything outside what I've just done?
At Q&A, I came clean and admitted that I had never watched it. And that probably was not the smartest thing that I'd ever done. Simply because I don't ever watch things that I do generally. Like, I just hate watching myself. I think it's weird. So I just had never kind of got into the show and watched it. And yeah, that you probably shouldn't admit that in like room full of like 1,000 Outlander fans.
That's interesting though. So you don't watch stuff you do. I mean, I always imagine that. So on the set, when you're performing, for example, if it's a TV show or a film, do you just know there and then sort of go, I think that's good, I got that, I nailed that? Or because I just imagine watching it back could be a research tool for going, I'm doing that and I don't want to do that.
Yeah, that is certainly true. I think on set, as I've got older, you certainly have the instinct as to whether you nailed it. But I think the more I've sort of lent to the other side of the camera, a lot of your performance is down to the edit and how they choose to edit what you've done. And so I try not to think about that kind of too much. You kind of can do your best and then you kind of give it into the hands of other people, which is why I kind of love theatre, because you kind of have much more control over what you're doing, I guess. Whereas I think TV and film, there's so many extraneous circumstances. So yeah, there are certain things that I have watched and kind of, you have to end up watching bits because of when you have to put a show reel together as an actor. So you have to kind of look through things and find things that you like and that you don't like. When I was little, I used to raise my eyebrows an awful lot. So that's something that I had to rein back in. There's a lot of eyebrow acting going on.
It's, weirdly, that was on one of the very few things I ever acted in, which was a commercial for the pharmacy Boots when I was much, much younger. That was the thing that they complained about. Not complained, but they were like, can you do that again without raising your eyebrows? And it turns out I couldn't. I was an eyebrow actor. If that's a thing, I don't know, but that was, yeah. And so this job, All Roads Lead to Rome, you filmed it in Italy. Is that part of the reason it's one of the best experiences you've had? Because I've seen it and it looks like, just an amazing place to travel around.
For 3 months and just got to eat Italian food every single night. And pretty much we used to go out to eat, and restaurants, obviously, she would never expect it, but most restaurants demanded that we ate for free at their restaurant. So yeah, it was just a really lovely period of time. Where we would go out for dinner, and then there'd probably be about 11 different moments in the evening where I'd have to be like the photographer to take photos for people, because in Europe she is just massive. I mean, she is everywhere, but I think people weren't expecting her to be in Italy, so it was but that was interesting to kind of be on that side of things where I experienced like paparazzi and like how anxiety inducing that is to kind of be with somebody that is followed constantly. That was, I think, a real good life lesson for me. There were certain moments where we were like cycling around with bikes and people were chasing us, and it was not fun. Yeah.
Wow. So like, what did you take from that? Like, I'd rather never be in that position.
That position, because it is one of the things where we went to visit the Pope one Sunday. He was giving a speech, and we were in the middle of the Vatican Square, and people started to clock that she was there, and everyone started. And I mean, there's thousands of people in the square, and we were like, how are we going to get out of this? Like, there was moments, because we're both very small, like we were both petite, and you're just there like, I can't protect her and we're going to get mobbed. So I remember that being something that I was like, I don't think I could ever handle that. And she is so gracious about it all, but I don't think I could live like that.
Wow. I mean, that does sound terrifying. Crowd. I mean, surely she has people like security. People are going, we've got to get Sarah out of here.
No, absolutely not. It was just us two. I think she lives a very normal life, and I think because she lives in New York, everybody knows she's there and she's left alone most of the time. No, there was no security. It was just two small people.
How did you get out? Just to put my mind at ease.
This is really stupid. We ended up speaking in like a fake language and pretending it wasn't her, and getting out that way. Yeah.
Oh, well done. I do like the idea of everyone being in Vatican Square and the Pope being on his little balcony and people going, yeah, but Sarah Jessica Parker's over there.
Yeah, exactly.
And obviously you worked on, I think it was, am I right in thinking it was the guys who produced Twilight? You worked with them on a movie as well.
Down a Dark Hall.
Yes.
Like, dream come true, because it was 5 naughty girls in a boarding school, and Uma Thurman was our head teacher, and you just got to live out like all those sort of teenage movies that you've grown up watching. And it was me and 4 amazing American young actresses, and we all just became best friends, and we shot in Barcelona. So that was another one that you're like, that was a very, very special moment. And obviously getting to work with Uma Thurman was like, it's Uma Thurman. Yeah.
Because I think, as you said earlier, you know, rather than going the drama school route, you've learnt a lot on the job, and I'm assuming from working with people like Sarah Jessica Parker, like Uma Thurman.
Yeah, I mean, they are quite literally like icons in their field, and you know, just being around them on set and watching them off set and on set, how they act, how they prepare, how they do their performances was kind of incredible. Like to get to be in that sort of presence was so great for a young actor.
And bringing us sort of, I guess, more up to date. So please tell me this book isn't out, because otherwise I haven't done my due diligence.
It's not out. October.
October when? The 14th?
October 14th, yeah.
Okay, good. I can relax now, because I was like, I was just like, Waterstones said coming soon, and Waterstones seemed like a staple of British sort of literary commercialism.
Yes, no, you're all right.
Okay, good. Right, well, let's get into it then. So this is, now, tell me if I've got the order wrong. So this was a play that then you've turned into a book that is now being made into a film called Instructions for a Teenage Armageddon.
Yeah, you got it right. Yeah. So we did a preview run of this play that I'd written as a joke that I didn't think anyone was ever going to see, and then randomly ended up getting put on. Which was essentially all about a teenage girl's experience and wanting to put them front and center, because so often in theatre, teenage girls are side parts and the stories don't revolve around them and sort of their lives. So we did a preview run, and then we were meant to go back on somewhere else, and then COVID happened. So we are going on again, but not until theatre is fully kind of, you know, back. And then, but it was when we were doing that preview run that I was introduced to my now literary agents at WME, that sort of said, how would you feel about doing a book, you know, turning this into a sort of non-fiction guide for teenage girls to how to survive their teenage years and how to get through them. So that's what we ended up doing over lockdown, was that we wrote this book and kind of created this thing, and then kind of, I don't quite know how it happened, but then there is now a film, and I don't know how, I can't remember how that process came about, but we've been filming this sort of hybrid feature version of the play, which is really exciting.
So the play and the book share a title, but the play is a work of fiction, whereas the book is partly written by you, and you've curated it as well.
Yeah, so we have, so it's like an entire guide that has lots of different sections. So we have, you know, so we have contributors writing about different topics, from like mental health to body image to, you know, staying safe, to boundaries, to consent, to all these kind of important topics. And then we have sections that are like 10 top tips for surviving certain experiences that you'll have, and kick-ass profiles of women of note that we think everyone should know about. And it's all in this sort of big bundle of guide of female empowerment, hopefully. Fingers crossed.
That sounds great. So who did you approach, or are you not allowed to say at the moment? How did you approach them?
Gosh, that was really, do you know what I found? Everyone that was approached about it was so lovely and kind, and was so open. And the real issue was, and I don't mind saying this, was people's agents that got in the way, people's teams. And it was really interesting as an actor, because obviously you only have your agent as an actor that you deal with on an acting side of thing. And then suddenly when you're approaching agents going, could you ask so-and-so, and you sort of see the other side of things for the first time. Like, I got to see how agents work, and you know, some people had absolutely lovely, brilliant agents that were so great, and other people had agents who were, you know, not so nice. And that was really interesting. And I think it's, as an actor, that's kind of interesting to know how you're represented when people approach your agent about things. So yeah, we approach, so like we've got like Sarah Pascoe's written an essay, and people like, we've got a lot of, so Summer Sarah, who created Everyone's Invited, which is the campaign to stop rape culture in schools. We've got a lot of activism within the book, kind of, because the whole thing is centered around like empowering teenage girls to know that they can change the world and they can do what they want with their lives. So that's kind of how that came about. But no, everyone that we approached was so kind and lovely once we got to them. That's what I'll say. Once we got through.
So like that is, I mean, it's kind of scary for some people if they are not aware that their agent is being difficult without their consent.
Yeah, that is, I think that's something that, and I don't think as an actor you never get to experience that, because certainly I don't, obviously, because I have my team, but like, you know, you only deal with them when they're talking to you. You don't know how that whole thing kind of plays out behind the scenes. And it was quite, I'm not gonna lie, it was kind of intimidating as an actor approaching agents in a different realm that wasn't anything to do with acting, going, I'm doing this book, would you know, pass this onto your client? And like I said, you know, some was just so wonderful and brilliant and you're like, yay, we love you. And then others could be quite tricky. Yeah,
it's weird because, I mean, you would normally be protected from that by your agent. For example, they'd be the ones sort of approaching people on your behalf, and there's a buffer between you and that experience.
Yeah, exactly. Whereas all of a sudden it's like you're front line and center going, hi, it's Rosie. Could you pass this idea onto your client? And I think it's interesting. I think a lot of actors are quite scared of their agents because, you know, they get us work and they're the people that you know, that sort of are the gatekeepers to our livelihood. And so there's a real kind of intimidation about it. And that's certainly something I felt growing up, you know, as a young woman in this industry, is how agents treat you and kind of how you feel about them. And something that I try to remind like younger actors, like, or and the people, older actors have reminded me that you pay them. They technically, agents work for you, and it's something, and that power balance, I think, can be really rocky when it comes to younger actors, I think.
It's really interesting, that point, isn't it? It's exactly when I started out in stand-up, a very successful stand-up, before I had an agent, said a very similar thing to me. I was like, you work for X, don't you? And he was like, no, they work for me. And to hear that, I was like, wow. So that way of viewing it, because as like you say, as a younger performer in any of the arts, really, then you are sort of, you know, getting an agent is the big thing, and like it's gonna change everything.
Yeah, exactly. And then it's having that, like, as an actor, you have very little power in this industry other than what you say yes or no to in terms of work, and you can often end up feeling very unempowered. And I think having the right people around you is probably the most important thing that you can do. And if you're lucky enough to find them, I think that's really important.
So what constitutes, what were they doing? Were they asking, was it money? Were they going, is there a fee for this book?
Yeah, so everyone was paid, or they could have their money donated to a charity of their choice, or STEM 4, which is the teenage mental health charity the book is giving some of its profits to. And so lots of people came back, were asking for more money, which is, you know, you'd expect that of agents, that is their job at the end of the day. And then some people were just a bit rude or ignored you for ages, and then or like replied and then just ghosted you. So yeah, you know, it was a real kind of learning curve. But you know, there was equally as many brilliant ones that were incredibly supportive and really got behind the message of the book, which was really lovely. But it was scary emailing agents. It's terrible to me. That's terrifying, having to approach people.
I listen. We're on the same page about that, because obviously, you know, I'm booking people for this podcast directly. So for the first time in my life, instead of someone going, "Hey, you know, you just have to be here at this time," I'm sort of like, "Hey, would they be interested in coming on?"
Absolutely, yeah. It's scary.
So big shout out to CLD and Claire Dobbs, because they were lovely.
So lovely. That's something that I think as I've got older, I keep saying to people, and I sound like a broken record, but I just want to work with kind people. Like, that is my priority. Nice, kind people that, you know, that want to make nice work. That's kind of like my only level of in terms of what I want to do, just because I think the industry has still got a very long way to go in terms of kind of, you know, looking after women and just, you know, and people in general. You know, I think there's a lot of good in this industry, and there's a lot of bad, and we're slowly rooting out the bad. But for my sanity, I only want to work with nice people.
Is that achievable? I mean, just, you know, playing devil's advocate, you know, a role comes along that is like, this is a dream role, but you have knowledge of a situation where someone is working on it who has a bad reputation. How do you weigh that up? Would you still take the part, or would you go, look, my mantra is my mantra. I cannot in good conscience do this and go through that experience?
If I've heard bad things about someone, and genuinely serious bad things, I wouldn't take the role. I've lived through too many experiences on set where I've had bad experiences with people that had like affected my mental health, that I value that more than a job now. I think having peace inside you is more important than any role, and what you're doing by continuing to work with these people is they're continually getting jobs and working. And it's only when everyone stops and goes, we're not working with you anymore because what you've done is bad, that those people then have to leave the industry. And I think that's something that we sort of have to make a change and do. And I'm certainly I want to be part of the change.
Well, I mean, you mentioned you're an ambassador for STEM4, which is, in case anyone doesn't know, it's about supporting teenage mental health.
Yes, so it's support and preventing teenage mental health issues, and all about education. So we go around schools and we talk to kids, usually from about 13 to 16, educating them on mental health. And yeah, the work they do is kind of unparalleled. Like, we have like 8 apps and like all these, different amazing tools that they can find online to kind of help with teenage mental health, because right now it is in a very bad place because we have a government that doesn't fund mental health properly.
And do you think it's got worse? I mean, we're obviously different ages, but from when I was a teenager and when you were a teenager, do you think we're in a different time now? It seems to me from my end that, I mean, to put it bluntly and not flippantly, even if it does sound a little flippant, I'm really, really fucking glad that I'm not a teenager in 2021.
Goodness, you could not pay me to be a teenager. I think from the statistics that I know, I think since the invention of social media, mental health issues have risen by 80%. I think that's the statistic, which is terrifying. And you don't want to be the person that bangs on about the dangers of social media, but it is good and evil in equal measure. And yeah, I think especially the pandemic, I know, has had a huge knock-on effect to teenagers' mental health. I know the STEM4 website has been getting more hits every day because of it. And people, I think it's like a 2-year wait list to try and actually get proper help on the NHS for a mental health condition. So that's why STEM4 is really important. I think the work they do, I've seen firsthand how they change people's lives, and that's why I kind of wanted to give money from the book to them, because that's how I learnt about supporting teenagers, I guess, through them. And
I mean, I think you just touched on it. It's well documented that social media is the fucking devil. At least, I think at a young age, I think the thing that has always struck me about it, from the negative experiences that I had at school, they were always at school. And then you come home, you close your bedroom door, close your house front door, and you'd be at home and you were in a safe place. And now that safe place doesn't exist because it's right there in front of you on your phone and you can't escape it.
Can't escape it. And so it's 24/7, and people are so much meaner online, and when they can hide behind things, then most of the things that are said on social media people wouldn't dare say to somebody's face, but because it's it's online, then the trolls that's where the trolls hide. And also the whole idea of comparison, we always say this like a broken record, but people put their best bits online. They don't put their worst days, and that's how young girls can end up feeling very less than others.
Yeah, I can believe that. I can believe that because as a 42-year-old man who believes himself very sort of wise, if not a little cynical, I sometimes go, how the fuck is their life so good?
I mean, I do it as well. That's I think that's just the nature of the beast, sadly.
Yeah. I mean, you obviously you worked in your teenage years. You were working in an industry not short on sort of negative elements like rejection, and just a lot of bullshit. I mean, how was that?
I think the rejection thing is really funny because I think, you know, you end up getting rejected in this industry like twice a week, probably. And I think growing up with it probably made me have a very hard shell to it. Like, unless I've got incredibly far for a job that I really want, getting rejected doesn't even sort of cross my mind. But I think as a teenager, like, there is a whole, I wasn't a particularly, like, I was quite a normal teenager. I looked pretty normal. I kind of, you know, I wasn't ridiculously pretty or anything like that. So, like, I remember, you know, you'd go to auditions and you'd see very beautiful girls, and it is intimidating, and usually they did get cast because that's what was wanted. And, you know, it is an industry, or was an industry, full of bullshit, but, you know, hopefully we're trying to move past that. And it definitely probably had mental repercussions that I've not thought of yet, that I probably should go to therapy and talk about. Like, that's probably what I should do, because yeah, it's a very odd way to grow up. 100%.
So October the 14th,
Yeah.
Instructions for a Teenage Apocalypse. That's when that comes out. Armageddon, sorry. I'm getting my apocalypses and Armageddon's muddled up. Armageddon.
Apocalypse. Maybe that's the next one. That'll be the next.
And so are you filming the film at the moment, or is it done?
No, we're literally doing it, yeah, at the moment. So it's been really, really fun. We've got a great cast of, like, Amanda Abbington and Phil Glenister, and kind of just it's been really, I've been directing it, which is crazy and bizarre.
Oh, shit. Wow.
That's something that I never thought, because I directed some shorts, but I never wanted to be in the things I directed. That was always a very separate thing. Whereas now I'm in the thing I'm directing, which is a bit of a mind fuck, to be quite honest, to kind of do both. But it's certainly been a really fun learning experience.
And how did you make that? The obviously, if you've done some shorts, did you feel like equipped to actually move into a feature from doing the shorts?
I think because this is a hybrid of a play, so we have half of it is feature film scenes, and then the other half is set on a stage. So it's a kind of like this bizarre viewing experience. And because we'd done the show, because I know that piece so inside out, back to front, that was where I was not kind of intimidated by it. And, you know, we have a really lovely DP, and it's kind of been we put together a great team. And yeah, I think if it was otherwise, like, I don't think I could have acted and directed something unless I knew it to the depth that I know that piece, I guess.
I guess that must be pretty cool, though. So you are the writer, director, and actor in a feature, in one whole feature.
Yeah, and that sounds like a total ego trip, which is why I hate it so much, which is why I was so against directing it, because I was like, I've written it, I'm acting in it, and now I'm directing it. Like, that just sounds like the show, which makes me feel a bit ill, to be quite honest. Yeah.
You own that shit. That's amazing.
I cringe, actually. Like, I genuinely slightly cringe inside. But we'll see. I don't know. Fingers crossed it all turns out okay.
And when is that coming out then? Is that, do you have a release date, or are you just sort of seeing how it goes?
We'll finish by the end of August. We'll finish filming. And then, yeah, watch this space. It'll work. Fingers crossed.
Rosie Day, it's been an absolute pleasure talking to you. Thank you for your time, and good luck with your writing, starring, and directing gig.
Thank you very, very much.